is going on, Only Playbook fans? We are back for another episode. This week, we have Shovit, who is back. It has been a while, Shovit. Me and Shishot were talking about last week how it felt so long since we got back and recorded, and Shishot hadn't been in the fold like before the 1-1 hiatus, and then you were gone, and now you're back, and it's been a while for you to kind of be away from football. So good to see you, man. How does it feel? I know a lot of good news and stuff has changed in your life, so congrats to everything, but how are you feeling?
Yeah. I feel great. Yeah, lots of big things have happened. I've been kind of having a hiatus just because I got married. Went to Italy and I got married. Big life changes, and so just been busy planning with that. But in the back of my mind, while I was in Italy, we had some downtime. I was still doing mock drafts on Sleeper, and so I did like 4 or 5 of them. And I'm still super stoked for this season. So just getting back on track now. Super excited.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Exciting stuff. But, even marriage, whatever it is, the fantasy grind just never stops.
Never stops.
So, and I'm sure that was part of the vows that you told Zelina. Hey, Zelina, I love you so much, but sometimes fantasy, man, I got to check the mocks. So she knows all about that life. She's engulfed in it. So congrats to you guys. That's awesome. We got a good episode today, Shovit. We are discussing basically as fantasy mocks and drafts start to come. It's interesting to discuss all of the players that have the possibility to finish this upcoming season as the number 1 fantasy football player, right? So total points scored, the most points scored. Usually you exclude quarterbacks from that because naturally quarterbacks will score more, but skill position player, the number 1 finisher. And, things that we've learned in the past is usually when you have one player finish number 1 one year, the chances of them repeating are like next to 0, right? Mm-hmm. That's something we'll discuss. So you have 3 players that you believe strongly have a solid chance to finish number 1. I have 3 players I believe have a solid chance to finish number 1. I put together a list of basically 12 players. You pick 3, I pick 3. So let's get it underway. Shovit, give me your first player.
Yeah, so this first player, it's funny that you mentioned the Barkley and Chase because they're also on my list here, but I'm going to go with someone first that we haven't mentioned, and that's Bijan Robinson, right? Bijan Robinson is a 23-year-old rising star who could be the overall RB1 next year, right? He played in all 17 games, 1,456 rushing yards, 431 passing yards, and a total of 15 touchdowns. And his usage last year can really be broken down into 2 parts, right? You got week 1 and 5, and then you have week 6 to 18. And let's take 6 to 18 because that's what matters the most here. From week 6 to 18, he averages 23.4 touches and 120.9 total yards per game, right? So if he maintains that 23 touches per game, I mean, his upside is enormous. And what we like the best from our running backs is touchdowns, right? So 66 red zone touches, which is 3rd most at that position as a running back. So he's clearly the game plan to be the go-to scorer down the stretch. And he's explosive. He's a steady runner, average 4.79 yards per carry. And his explosiveness can be backed by his stats of 83 missed tackles, right? And his elusiveness, which backed up by 22.7 juke rate %, right? Wow. So, and here's a fun fact, right? In PPR format, there were only 2 running backs to score 10 plus points every single game last year. One was Jahmyr Gibbs, and the second is Bijan Robinson. So, wow. I mean, that's your consistency. You're going to hit that ceiling and more from Bijan Robinson is what I'm expecting. So, just for some context, right, you have this offense is Atlanta. It's evolving with offensive coordinator Zach Robinson, and you have a sophomore quarterback in Michael Penix Jr. So, I'm expecting, the offensive line is going to continue to stay the same. I saw one, I think Fantasy Pros had them as the top 10 offensive linemen from last year. Really good pass blocking and a decent run blocking rate as well. So, so there seem like a team that's really up and coming right now. And going back to Bijan Robinson, a lot of elite running backs start making that leap year 2. Year 3, right? CMC had that 1K rushing and passing yards at the same time. LaDainian Tomlinson, Todd Gurley had that MVP season, 3rd year. So I think he can make a step forward, right? And I'm thinking 1,600 rushing yards, 600 receiving, 18 plus touchdown. I know it's crazy, but he's that go-to guy. So route usage is there, goal line usage, rushing opportunities, give him that opportunity to be number 1 receiver. And I think it could be a reality.
I think that was a really, really strong argument, and I'm with you. And I'd be interested. I don't know if you dug into those numbers, but the week 1 through 6, did it have anything to do with Tyler Algier having more touches, or did he get a reduced workload starting week 6 through 18?
Yeah, Tyler Algier definitely had a lesser workload after week 6, so that definitely he was the more of the go-to guy moving forward from there. So that definitely had a lot to do with it for sure.
Yeah, and that's awesome. That's kind of what we were talking about last year, right? With the whole season and the year before, his rookie season, and then last year, where we were like, man, if Algier just gets away and they give Bijan all the touches, the sky's the limit. So yes, if you extrapolate week 6 through 18, Shovit, I think he would easily finish as not just RB1, but the number 1 player outside of quarterbacks in fantasy football. And this is a great segue for me, because the first guy I want to talk about is Jahmyr Gibbs. The most interesting stat that I found that I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be my argument for Gibbs, is we're talking about receptions, right? Because we know Gibbs doesn't get as many touches as the Bijans and the Breeses and those in the Barkleys. And the thing that jumped off the page is Bijan had more catches than Gibbs last year. And I thought that was, I don't know why. I just, for some reason in my brain, I was like, I know Gibbs isn't getting as many carries, but I know for sure that dude's getting hella catches. And Bijan still, I think, had like 8 or 9 more catches than Gibbs. So yes, I'm with you. Bijan is prime candidate to finish as the number 1 player in fantasy football. So great segment there. And that segues me to Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is my player that I think has a solid case to finish as the number 1 player in fantasy football. Let's talk about a couple things about Jahmyr Gibbs, right? So Jahmyr Gibbs, we already know he shares a backfield with David Montgomery. That's the biggest fear that most people have, is when you're talking about a guy that's going to finish 1-1, he needs to be getting all the touches. He needs to be doing everything. And that, in theory, should be the case. But what's interesting is, even with David Montgomery there last year, even with David Montgomery playing 15 out of the 17 games last year, Jahmyr Gibbs was RB2 behind Saquon Barkley, and he only finished RB2 by 1.9 points of it. So he was a mere 1 catch for 10 yards away from basically being the RB1 in fantasy football, despite being viewed as somebody who isn't the workhorse, despite being viewed as like, oh my God, is this drive going to be Gibbs or Montgomery? Yet he is still incredibly efficient. And so you have to think about a couple of things here. They have the same offensive line. Their offensive line is predicated on run blocking. The entire right side's like top 3 in the NFL in run blocking. So that's really where they make their bread and butter. And the thing with Jahmyr Gibbs that we talked about, he's a pass catcher, right? So 250 carries last year. That's almost 100 less than Barkley, who had 345. Henry had 325. Bijan had 304. But Gibbs had 52 catches on 63 targets, to Barkley's 33, to Henry's 19, to Bijan's 61. So I know obviously this makes it look like Bijan is a clear-cut favorite to finish as RB1 with that usage. But the thing with Gibbs is he's playing on an offense that you expect to constantly be in the red zone. We don't know for sure that we can say the same thing about the Falcons. Like you said, second-year quarterback Michael Penix. We don't know what a full season of Michael Penix in that offense is going to look like. We've already seen these Lions explode for years on end. And Jahmyr Gibbs, like you said, the same thing about year 3 running backs for Bijan. It bodes well for Jahmyr Gibbs. Same draft class, bro. So same timeline. And the only thing, I would say the only real downside, or the only real unknown about Jahmyr Gibbs having the potential to finish RB1 or overall number 1 is the fact that they lost Ben Johnson. And I don't think that can't go understated, right? I mean, this guy revolutionized Jared Goff into this, oh my gosh, like incredible processor, ability to read defenses, play in structure incredibly, and we don't have that same thing anymore. We have, I believe they signed I forget, I'm blanking on his name, something Morton or something. But anyways, John Morton, that's it. And so we have no idea if he is basically going to come in there and try to deploy a same type of offense that Ben Johnson ran, but that's easier said than done. Ben Johnson's one of the best. So if he's going to come in with any sort of like his own wrinkle, 2 things can happen, right? And I think there's a better chance that this guy comes in and changes things up. That means Jahmyr Gibbs has a better chance to finish RB1, because again, the theory is eventually the better player prevails, similar to Algier and Bijan, right? You want to elongate these guys' careers, but at the same time, you want to maximize their peak prime years where they don't have all that tread on their tires. So if this new guy comes in and realizes, hey, I'm not Ben Johnson, so like I need to simplify things to make it easier on me. What's the best way to simplify things? Put the ball in the hands of your best weapons. And sorry, as many times as you want to give David Montgomery the football, like every touch that you give Jahmyr Gibbs has an ability to be a home run where it does not bode the same for David Montgomery. So he could come in with the thought process that, you know what? 250 carries for Jahmyr Gibbs. It's year 3. He's put on a little bit of weight. He's getting stronger. Let's up that to 275. And I still don't think there's going to be any shortage of passing the football to him. So Again, that's why I think if this new offensive coordinator comes in with any sort of thought process that I want to get my best players the football even a little bit more, that was 1.9 points away, Shobit. Jahmyr Gibbs was 1.9 points away as finishing RB1. So what's not to say that he couldn't do it this year?
Yeah, absolutely. And the two things that really stuck out what you said is like it's a really good offense, right? So the opportunity is going to be there. And we saw Montgomery getting injured in a couple of weeks last week, and Jahmyr Gibbs just got the reins and was able to perform really well in those games. So if any point there's no Monty in the situation in this as an opportunity, someone that's going to take some of the carries of Gibbs, I mean, sky's the limit for him. So yeah, I like that bet. Just a good offense and skill position player, you got to give it to Gibbs. I think so. Cool. Well, with that, I will switch it up a little bit. We talked about running backs. Let's talk about wide receiver Ja'Marr Chase, right? Ja'Marr Chase last year had historical finish, right?
Wait, by the way, let me interrupt you real quick, but I'm going to give you your kudos. I'm pretty sure last year in our rankings episode, you had Ja'Marr Chase finishing as wide receiver 1, and he finished as wide receiver 1.
I think about that fact every single day and how different my just everything would have been last year for me if I would have just gone with my belief that Ja'Marr Chase. I mean, historical season, and it means nothing. You don't draft a player when you believe what you.
I mean, it means something. It's recorded on a podcast episode. You put it in writing. You put it on a recording. Somebody can go back and be like, "That's what this guy said." So, no, I mean, you're right. In theory, you want to follow through on your beliefs, but at the same time, like. Neither me or Shisho thought that Ja'Marr Chase was finishing wide receiver 1. And I don't think that was a popular opinion heading into last season. So still, I would say you still get your kudos there.
I think that, and part of the reason was Joe Burrow's injury as well with the wrist. We didn't know what was going to happen with that. That's a pretty big injury. But, all in all, like he had a historical finish last year, right? Claiming the throne as a number 1 receiver in fantasy football, 1,708 yards, 17 touchdowns, which was the most fantasy points by a non-quarterback. And 127 receptions is career high, a Bengals franchise record. Like he just led all receivers in targets, 30% target share, 10.3 targets a game. I mean, need I say less, right? And the most important fact is that he led the entire NFL in red zone targets. So the past 6 number 1 fantasy receivers have all led in red zone targets. So Chase was the 6th to do so in the last 6 years, right? So and he rightfully won. So he signed a historic contract, 4 years, $161 million, and they do bring back T. Higgins, which to me allows the defenses to not double team him. And if they do, they're paying for it, right? Because Higgins, he'll help keep the defense honest as well. And I think the strength of schedule is tough for Chase, but I'm looking at it. I think it was one of the hardest schedules on Fantasy Pros, but he put big numbers against the Steelers, the Ravens, the divisional matchups, right, which have a pretty good defense. So I think that a back-to-back champion from a wide receiver is possible. We haven't seen it since Antonio Brown, but it takes a perfect storm of high volume, high touchdowns, and that's what Chase delivered last year. This duo to me is like Manning and Marvin Harrison in 2002. You've got Jordy Nelson and Aaron Rodgers, right? Like that's what we're talking about with Chase and Burrow. So the red zone threat, the targets. I think that he has an opportunity to be wide receiver 1. And I get regression, but I don't think that in this case, we should be okay with drafting him first as the first wide receiver or first overall.
I completely agree. I think he's in such a unique situation where, like you said, there's no down, there's no distance, there's no area in the on the field where you're not thinking Ja'Marr Chase couldn't get the football, right? Red zone, he's getting the football. Screen passes, he's getting the football. Slants, he's getting the football. Go routes, he's getting the football. So even with T. Higgins, there is no shortage of the amount of times that Joe Burrow looks at Ja'Marr Chase's way. And again, we can't undersell the fact that these guys have like that historic LSU, that combination. It means so much. It just means when push comes to shove, even if T. Higgins is otherworldly this year, right? I mean, he's really good. Don't get me wrong. And he'd probably be a wide receiver 1 on a lot of teams, but he's always going to play second fiddle here to Ja'Marr Chase, whether we like to believe it or not. Every single time Joe Burrow has to scramble or he needs to look for somebody, he's going to look for Ja'Marr Chase. And I think that helps so much. And it doesn't hurt that they basically did nothing to improve their defense, right? So they should be in shootouts. They should be playing from behind quite a bit. So if that's kind of the recipe that they had last year, play from behind, tougher schedule. Again, like we want to say black and white. Bad, tough schedule means maybe they're not going to score as much. But when you have like elite players and elite talent, tougher schedule almost means that they perform better because like the competition level is raised higher. You have to play better to beat these teams. So that's usually when like the best players play their best. So it's tough. I'm sure it can go both ways, but in elite levels like Ja'Marr Chase, I look at strength of schedule and I'm like, I think it'd be fine. So yeah, so I'm with you, man. I just, the Joe Burrow, Ja'Marr Chase, the connection, the no defense. That their offense is built to throw the football all the time. Like if they could, they would let Joe Burrow throw the football 50 times a game. And so volume just tells you that Ja'Marr Chase has a really strong chance to finish as the number one player. And I would be shocked, like sitting here right now, if I had 1-1, I probably would take Ja'Marr Chase. So that's where we're at. Good segue, though. So Ja'Marr Chase's college teammate, Joe Burrow, also threw to another guy at LSU, and that is my next pick. Justin Jefferson has a solid case to be the number one receiver. Do I think sitting here that his case is better than Ja'Marr Chase's? Absolutely not. I don't. But like, there's a couple of things that I want to highlight here that I think could be important to discuss, right? So last year, Justin Jefferson was wide receiver 2. Congrats. Who was he behind? Ja'Marr Chase. He was behind Ja'Marr Chase as wide receiver 2, but the gap was 74 fantasy points. I mean, think about that. That's like a 25-point week for your receiver in 3 weeks. And that you're barely, kind of catching up there. So that's 3 weeks of elite level play from one single receiver is the difference. And that's massive, right? We talk about the amount of games they both played. They both played 17 games, but things that are important and relevant. Ja'Marr Chase played 5 games without T. Higgins last year. Justin Jefferson played 2 games without Jordan Addison last year, right? So wide receiver 1s and 2s, good duos. We talked about Joe Burrow. He's obviously a superior quarterback to Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was Justin Jefferson's quarterback all last year. The pass attempts will tell you that. Joe Burrow threw the ball 652 times. Sam Darnold threw the ball 545 times, right? So naturally, volume is king. But what we can agree on is the Vikings defense is better than the Bengals defense. And I would argue that the Vikings defense has improved this year. And the Bengals, again, have done absolutely nothing. So I assume that their defense is going to stay the same. And if they don't pay Trey Hendrickson, it's going to get much worse. And I don't know how much worse you can get from really bad. So, it's almost like they want to put up historic offensive run numbers by not paying anybody on defense. So interesting strategy there. But I don't know. And so certain things that are important here that give Jefferson a chance to outperform what he did last year. Jordan Addison is going to face a 3-game suspension at some point this year for his DUI last year. So at some point that's going to come into fruition. So 3 games without Jordan Addison already, outside of the fact that he could get injured, right? They have Jalen Nailor as their number 3 wide receiver. He's not anybody that's a threat to really be, once he's the number 2, he's not going to like take a bunch of targets away or anything like that. And they drafted Ty Felton in the 4th round, has a chance to probably be a wide receiver 4, but I don't know if in year 1, he's going to sneak into a wide receiver 2 or be that relevant. So already there's a certain amount of games that Justin Jefferson should be the guy and the focal point of the offense if he's already isn't, even with Addison on the field. So we think about that. The other thing to think about, Ja'Marr Chase has had stints where Joe Burrow wasn't his quarterback. There was a time where Joe Burrow got hurt and Jake Browning was a quarterback, and you saw a massive drop off in the Chase targets because, again, volume is so king for Ja'Marr Chase that if Joe Burrow's not the quarterback, he may not get the same level of volume, and at that point he has to be much more efficient. And the one thing we know about Justin Jefferson is in the time that Nick Mullins came in and played quarterback, in the times that Josh Dobbs came in and played quarterback. I mean, hell, all last year, Sam Darnold was a quarterback. And before the season, everybody except maybe Vikings fans were dogging on the fact that Sam Darnold was going to play a full season as a quarterback for Justin Jefferson. Oh my God, it's not Kirk Cousins. He may demand a trade. This is asinine. Well, what did he do? He ended up putting up wide receiver 2 numbers. 3 of the 5 games that Nick Mullins started, where basically it wasn't him and Dobbs splitting, right? It was just Nick Mullins. All 3 of the games, Nick Mullins threw for 300 yards. 2 of the games, he threw for 400 yards. In those 3 games, Shove It, Justin Jefferson had 12 catches for 192 yards and a touchdown, 6 catches for 141 yards and a touchdown, 7 catches for 84 yards. Suffice to say, the moral of the story is what Justin Jefferson has proved time and time again is it doesn't matter who is throwing him the football. He is basically quarterback proof. So this whole idea that we don't know what we're going to get from JJ McCarthy, there's definitely validity to it, right? This is basically his first real year as an NFL starter. But what I think can't go unnoticed is having a full year to learn as a backup, even if it was because he got injured, right? Let's just think like it wasn't. It was just a rookie year where they were going to redshirt him and he was sitting in the back and learning. Well, he got a whole year to learn. We already know about all the stuff that he did with the GoPro or the Oculus thing, where basically you're mimicking real life NFL coverages and stuff like that, which I've heard go a long way. And then the other thing you have to think about is, again, this is a guy that came into the NFL as a top 10 draft pick, right? So similar kind of expectation as Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was a top 3 draft pick. So like, we can't be like, oh, we don't know what we're going to get from JJ McCarthy. Yeah. Well, he's literally the highest drafted quarterback in Vikings franchise history, right? And he's getting drafted by the guy who the entire NFL right now is donning as a quarterback whisperer. So like, if we're just connecting the dots, there's no world where I think the expectation for JJ McCarthy, even though it's his rookie year, should be bad. Like, I think the expectation should be that he's going to come in and he's going to play really well. Is he going to have growing pains? Certainly. But I think he's going to come in and play really well. And 2 things I want to add to that before we move on. One thing that I think attributes to the NFL having that same ideology and thought process behind the Vikings is the Vikings are in 4 primetime games. The Vikings are basically going to Europe twice, right? They're playing in back-to-back weeks in Europe with a rookie quarterback. Like, there's no reason for this team, who Vegas is over-under is 8.5, needs to be televised as much as they are. But the NFL, who demands to put good products on TV, has them televised as much as they do. So that leads me to believe that the NFL shares the same sentiment that maybe Vikings fans do, in that this team should not have as steep a drop-off as everybody assumes, just because they won 14 games last year, just because they lost their starting quarterback. Now, all of that to say, if in fact JJ McCarthy can play even like Sam Darnold light, there's nothing that Justin Jefferson can't do for that man to help him produce. So Justin Jefferson's numbers should be there. And oh, by the way, if JJ McCarthy ends up playing like a top 10 pick, ends up playing like the best version of himself, then why couldn't this be Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase, right? There's no reason to believe that this couldn't be. Improved offensive line, a bunch of time to throw. They actually have a good defense. Like, the sky's the limit for this offense if JJ McCarthy basically is even a contributor or a facilitator of the offense, game manager. So if he's anything better than that, Justin Jefferson could easily be putting up 1,700 yards and 15 touchdowns.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I think anything that the Vikings do in terms of throwing the ball, I don't care who's in the back there throwing the ball, it will be efficient. They will get their passing yards, and Justin Jefferson will be the focal point of that offense. And I think you have a strong like floor with Justin Jefferson, where the upside is, what can JJ McCarthy do?
Exactly.
Being in that system, I think that, it will be efficient enough for, potentially to be a wide receiver 1 this year. So yeah, absolutely. I echo that sentiment as well. All right. The last player that I have is the number 1 running back of last year, Saquon Barkley, right? And in 2024, he proved why he's an elite fantasy back. Career high 2,283 scrimmage yards on 378 touches and 15 total touchdowns. And he missed 1 game. He didn't play that last game, right? His 21 plus touches per game just shows how heavily he's utilized, how productive he was on a game-by-game basis. And just some stats, like just efficiency to throw around here. 5.8 yards per carry, 25 breakaway runs, which was 7.2% of his carries. And he was behind that offensive line where he led all backs with 3.55 yards before contact per attempt. So he was basically getting 4 yards downfield before even being touched, right? Incredible. So incredible. And with that burst, that what you can do after those 4 yards, I mean, no wonder he had 25 breakaway runs. The snap shares there, 75.8%. Like I said, and the most important part is the 69 red zone touches, which is like, top tier 1, top 1 or 2 in each of those categories, right? So the biggest fear was, what is Jalen Hurts going to do? Is he going to take away from Saquon Barkley's usages in the red zone? And we clearly saw that Barkley was still getting his, right? The offensive line right now still ranks as one of the elite top 10 offensive linemen for 2025. So that blocking should still continue. Combine that with the receiving core with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, means that they can't have 7 guys on the box, right? On average, the defensive has 6.5 players on the box to stop Saquon Barkley, which is not enough, right? Yeah. So I think that the vulture part of Hurts won't happen. Like it's there, but he will still get his touches. The 69 red zone touches shows that. So all in all, to conclude, elite offensive lineman, efficient quarterback, and a great offense just sets the stage for Barkley to be that RB1 for 2025 as well.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the stat is, and I know it's incredible because we've seen it before, of the amount of tush pushes that they had that Saquon Barkley could have converted into a touchdown, right? So I don't know the number off the top, so it seems stupid that I'm bringing it up, but it's a really high number. And in spite of all of
Right.
those, he was still RB1. So just imagine, right? I mean, yes, if we were sitting here recording and they actually banned the tush push yesterday, my God, Saquon Barkley, RB1, like just sign me up. But they didn't ban it. So you're right. In theory, that tush push vulturing is still prevalent. But my God, like, I mean, you just got to think, even if 3 of those or like 2, 3, 4 of those, like Jalen Hurts doesn't get it, or they decide, you know what, it's another year of banging our quarterback's head against the offensive lineman. Maybe we want to protect him and maybe bang our running back's head against the lineman more because, you know, he's worth less in the long run. Sorry, running backs, but like, that's just the way it is. So you're right, dude. It's crazy because every single one of these arguments seem awesome. We seem like bona fide lawyers right now. I don't even disagree with anything you're saying. No, that's good. I think, again, we know what history tells us, that the number 1 guy has almost an impossible, like, just statistically incapable of repeating for whatever reason, injury, just whatever, drop off, other guys randomly popping up, right? I mean, there's just so many things, and the league has a whole year of tape. Like, I'm sure no NFL team wants to come in this year and watch Saquon rip 200 yards on him like he was doing off other teams, right? So at the demise of that, maybe they'll let AJ Brown have an extra couple 100-yard catches games, and like, or Devontae Smith will go off. And so again, that doesn't mean the Eagles as a whole will be worse. They could end up being just as good, if not better. But again, NFL defenses have to adjust, because if they just let everybody if they let the Eagles do what they did last year, then it just proves that nobody adjusted, and they're like, yeah, it's fine. Let's let Saquon beat us again. And if he does, then that's really stupid. So no, I'm with you. He's got a really good shot. Absolutely. But you know what? You know why he's not going to? Because of this next guy, Shove It. This is my last guy. This is probably the biggest reach in terms of ADP right now. So we talked about 5 guys so far, and I think in order between yours and my guys, it's their average draft position was 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we talked about like the top 5 guys in theory today, as we stand May 22nd in redraft leagues. That's the common top 5 that go, right? So the next guy I want to talk about, it's gonna be my last guy. Right now, his average draft position is at 1.12. So he's right at the turn, end of the first round, top of the second round. And it is going to be Ashton Jeanty, man. And I think I have not pounded the table for a running back. I mean, I kind of did with Bijan Robinson, but man, I feel so much better about Ashton Jeanty. I think this guy is going to come into the NFL and immediately be basically what Saquon Barkley was last year, like immediately. And so there's so many points I want to make, but let's talk about this. So the 2024 Raiders last year were the worst rushing team in the NFL. Okay. So they ran for 1,357 rushing yards combined as a whole team for the whole year. They ran for 1,357 yards. I'm pretty sure there's probably like 15 running backs alone that outran that whole team, right? That was between 14 players, by the way, that took a total of 380 carries. So between 14 players who got 380 carries, the whole team ran for 1,357 yards last year. They were the last place team, averaging a mere 79.8 rushing yards a game, Shove It. And here's what's worse. They were 32nd at 79.8. The gap between them and 31, the Jets were averaging 91.8 yards. So there was a 12-yard gap between them and the next worst place. So like, they were so bad, historically bad, just terrible. Okay. Here's what's different this year. Enter Pete Carroll. What do we know Pete Carroll for? Pete Carroll, in his time with the Seahawks, he is known for a bruising, strong run game, and that helps build off of his play action passing. That's what he's had with Russell Wilson. That's what he had with Marshawn Lynch. And now he ends up going out and the Raiders trade for Geno Smith. So you already have the quarterback. You no longer have to deal with Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. So you have a quarterback that knows how to run a pro style offense. He can do it really well. He's incredibly underrated. Let's talk about Pete Carroll's time in history, right? So this is a example, in my opinion, of history apparently about to repeat itself. So Marshawn Lynch was a Seahawk. So he got drafted by the Bills. He became a Seahawk in 2010, basically the same year that Pete Carroll takes over. 2010, so the year right before Pete Carroll took over, the Seattle Seahawks were 31st in the NFL in rushing yards. 31st, right? So they weren't 32nd, but they were 31st. So they were almost dead last in rushing. So the first year in 2011 with Pete Carroll, Marshawn Lynch ends up finishing with 285 touches, 12 touchdowns, 28 receptions, and he finished RB5 in fantasy. That's his first year. The Seahawks as a team finished 21st 21st in rushing. Okay. So from 31st to 21st in his first year, Marshawn Lynch ended up becoming a top 5 fantasy running back in his first year. Second year, the Seahawks go from 21st to 3rd in rushing in 2012. 3rd in rushing. Marshawn Lynch finishes 4th that year in rushing. He has 315 carries, 30 more carries than the first year. He has 23 receptions, 11 touchdowns. So again, insane. 5th and 4th. They went from 31st when he wasn't there, 21st his first year, 3rd his second year, right? The next year, stayed the same. They went 4th. They were 4th overall. Marshawn Lynch ended up also finishing 4th again. So back-to-back 4s, back-to-back top 5 finishes. And then 2014, the year after, was the best year for the Seahawks. I believe that was a Super Bowl year, but that is the year that the Seattle Seahawks as a rushing organization finished number 1 in the NFL. Marshawn Lynch finished RB3. He had 14 rushing touchdowns. He had 280 carries that year. And so all of this to say, we are entering an organization that is drafting a player who so many teams had compared to Marshawn Lynch. And I'll do you one better, Shovit. I think Ashton Jeanty has the breaking tackle ability of Marshawn Lynch, but I think he is faster. He is stronger. He can catch the ball better. There is an X factor to Ashton Jeanty that Marshawn Lynch did not have. That breakaway speed that Marshawn Lynch had, Ashton Jeanty is faster. That acceleration that Marshawn Lynch had, Jeanty is faster. That catching ability that Marshawn Lynch had, Jeanty is basically CMC. So there is nothing that Ashton Jeanty can't do that Marshawn Lynch did to have historic years under Pete Carroll. Now, a couple of other things, right? Couple of other things. We are pairing Ashton Jeanty in an offense. Well, they got Geno Smith, so, maybe some receivers are going to take some touches away. Well, their number 1 receiver is Jacoby Myers. Really nice, like solid number 1 receiver, but like not like alpha number 1. I need 200 targets or I'm going to demand a trade guy, right? So they don't have to build the offense around Jacoby Myers. He's not going to be upset whether he gets 50 targets or 150. But anyways, he's their number 1 receiver, and then Trey Tucker's their number 2. Obviously, I'm leaving out their number 1 target getter, and that's going to be Brock Bowers at the tight end position. But we understand that when you have a tight end as your number 1 like skill position or pass catcher, there is a certain floor that gives to your running game, because if your tight end is the only good thing about your offense, you're going to be really, really bad. But you're usually, when you have a good tight end that's catching a lot of passes, that is a good pairing with like a solid run game. And so here you have a situation where wide receivers on the outside are not demanding touches. You bring in a coach who is a run first, a physical style running offense that helps build with play action. And you have arguably one of the most generational prospects we've had since Saquon Barkley. I think Jeanty is a better prospect than Bijan Robinson. So everything adds up for this team here. And then the last thing I'll say is you can't do it alone as a running back, right? So what's the offensive line like, right? They had to have been asinine last year if the Raiders were historically bad. Well, the Raiders were historically bad, but their offensive line was actually exactly 15th in the NFL in run blocking. So this was just a Zamir White, Sincere McCormick, Amir Abdullah situation where they were all so garbage that like they could not seek open holes. So left tackle, just real quick, offensive line. You have left tackle Colton Miller, who was 27th out of 72 qualifying left tackles in run blocking, right? So top 3rd of the NFL. You have left guard, Dylan Parham, 13th out of 73rd left guard. So top echelon. You have Jackson Power Johnson, who is a guard last year and was 20th out of 73 guards. They're going to slide him over to play center now, which is actually where he played in college as well. So he has center experience. So he is already a good run blocker. Their right guard is their worst position, and then their right tackle is actually a terrible pass protector, but also a good run blocker. So again, 4 out of the 5 guys, their skill set, their plus skill is the fact that they can run block. So if they're going to lean into this at all, it is going to be all Jeanty all day long, man. I just think this guy's going to get 300 touches, carries. I think this guy's going to get 50 targets. I think he's going to get probably 10 touchdowns, and it's not because the offense is going to be good. It's just because this guy is going to break free, break holes, contact balance through the roof. He can break tackles. He can accelerate. There's nothing he can't do. And so it's crazy that we're sitting here right now and Jeanty is even a thought that he could go in the second round. I think is incredible. I think that's crazy. I think that's absolutely crazy. So I think as we get closer to August, when we actually do our draft, Jeanty's probably going to be like RB2 or RB3 off the board. But that's why I think Jeanty has a solid chance to finish as the number 1 player in fantasy football.
Yeah, that's solid, man. And I honestly, like, even if I was trying to play devil's advocate, outside of the uncertainty, just because he's going to be a rookie. I have nothing else to, go against you on that. I think that with Geno Smith and Pete Carroll as the head coach, they're a different team than they were last year, right? And I think they're going to be more efficient, give you the opportunities in the red zone as well. Jeanty in the red zone, that big stocky guy, Marshawn Lynch type of breaking tackles. I mean, the touchdowns should be there, and the competition. You have Raheem Mostert, Jahmyr White, who we've seen and didn't do shit last year, I'm still salty about that, right? And so there's just not any competition. A better offensive team with a focus on running the game. I think, there's definitely opportunity here for Jeanty.
Yeah, man. I think it's going to be a really, really fun season. A lot of good prime candidates to finish as, the number one player. So it really, I think this year, last year I felt like once you got to like the top 7, if you're like the 8th pick or after, you're like, man, I'm not getting the top cream of the crop player, so I'm having to settle for the next batch. I think there's a larger cream of the crop this year. So there's a larger initial like echelon of players to where I think almost everybody in the first round, if you're in a 12-man league, is going to have a chance to basically get the guy, a workhorse running back or a number 1 target getter in an NFL offense as a receiver that, is going to help carry your offense. So it's an exciting time to be an NFL fan. Those are our players that we think have a solid chance to finish as the number 1 fantasy football finisher heading into 2025. Let us know. Did we forget anybody? Did we CeeDee Lamb, CMC, Derrick Henry? I know there were other names. We thought about it, but the case just wasn't as strong as it was for some of these players. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. It helps spread the word. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at The Only Playbook. I'm Sweetcard. That is my Twitter. And that is Shobit. That is his Twitter. We are officially back, folks. Episodes weekly. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you next week.